So we've got a really bright headlight, comes with indicators at the front. There we go. Brake lights, they're quite bright too. We got mechanical brakes front and at the rear, 160 rotors, really nice kickstand, solid that. Nice pedals, they're nice and wide, how I like it. There's a basket, you can get a few packets of Jaffa cakes in, or 2 Jaffa cakes and a can of pop. 15 amp hour battery there, and underneath here there's a 21 amp controller. This thing comes up, set up is road legal, 15.5 mile an hour in the settings, but there is an unlock. Big thanks to B Rich there for working that one out. And you can add a throttle. So even though it comes UK legal without a throttle, or a working throttle, before we start going on about the 4 mile an hour thing, 4 miles an hour is a throttle, is pretty useless. These mud guards, they're cracking. They're solid as a rock. They really are, and they really do sort of like set the bike off. They really do. There's the name of the bike, Ebike EK30 by Evercross. 20x4 mag wheels with black and tan unnamed tyres, and they're unbranded, but front and rear. So up top we've got indicators left and right, on off button, up and down level buttons for pass and getting into your P settings, light on off. Really nice colour screen, I do like that. Usual tombstones there. I'm not a fan of this shifter, as you all know, I'll mention it again later, but nice grips, really nice grips. And then you've got your mechanical brake levers there, because it's mechanical brakes. Dual rear suspension, 7-speed freewheel, Shimano derailleur, and we've got a dual-sided chainring at the front. Crown forks at the front. They're non-adjustable, so what you get is what you get. And the same at the rear. These are dual shocks, but they're not adjustable. So let's get out there and see how it rides. One more thing, it's made of steel, not Chinesium, so it's a little bit heavier than your normal e-bike. Let's go on and see how it gets on. Right, without further ado, let's get into the hill climb. So, this thing comes locked, but there is an unlocking mechanism. It comes with no throttle. I've unlocked it for today because I want to have some fun with it. Now let's not beat about the bush here. This bike's heavy because it's not made of Chinesium, it's made of steel. So it's a bit heavier than your normal e-bike. On top of that, it has a 21 amp controller, so it's not really struggling up here. I'm getting 20 kilometers an hour just coming up the hill, which it seems to be doing in fine form. But as you can see, it's not struggle coming up here, and I'm not making much effort. So the main hill climb is a doddle. One of the things I like about this is that the cadence sensor cuts in and around about 3/4 of a turn. And the fact that it's got no throttle, I'm used to riding bikes without a throttle now, makes no difference to this whatsoever. But it picks up speed quite quickly, as you can see. I tried it locked up yesterday, and you easily get up to your 15.5 mile an hour with no issues whatsoever. And as you can see now, I'm going up a slight hill, 28 kilometers an hour. That's not bad at all. Effect it's going to have, well, I do know what effect it's going to have on the battery. It's going to burn it out. So I'm in level 3, so it goes levels 1 to 3, but you can adjust the pass levels to 3, 5, and I think there's 9 as well. Well, I've just kept it into 3, which comes out the box. So let's get on with the bypass run. I don't do this run with any bikes that are locked, but this gives you an idea, if you're going to be buying one, of what they're like when they're unlocked and when you get them on a bypass, because this is how a lot of you are going to be riding these to work and back, you know, different roads. Always remember, helmet, mirrors, gloves. I recommend that to anybody that rides an e-bike anywhere. I don't know if you saw my post on the Engwe e-bikes Facebook page this week. A young student got killed on campus in the UK riding an e-bike, apparently with 2 of them. And I'm guessing, and this is speculation, but I'm guessing it was a lack of helmet that was the reason. They also mentioned in the story on the Daily Mail, I'll put a link in on the description. It also mentioned that an old guy, I think it's from 2022, was killed on his e-bike when he hit a post and he didn't have an helmet on, so I'm guessing again, helmet related. You know, the speeds might not be massive on these, but when you bang your operating system into the floor, into a post, it's not the best. And you only get one operating system, and when you break that, there's no science at the moment that replaces it. So look after your Swedes, get an helmet. Also get a good fitting helmet, one that fits well. And gloves. You know, I've come off a couple of times off these things, and gloves have saved my hands. So, you know, gloves. Well, today is the first day of meteorological spring. So it's a lovely day. I think it's about 8 degrees, as my fingers are currently telling me. Right, let's check out these brakes. The brakes are mechanical. You all know what I think of mechanical brakes. And I'm braking now. They're all right. They're mechanical brakes. You know what I think of mechanical brakes on bikes that are over 20 kilos, and these are equally as dog shit to all the other ones that I've tested. Mechanical brakes have no right to be on e-bikes at this weight, and this one's heavier than normal. Did stop the bike, but you know, you can see where I'm pulling back from. It's not the best. coming up to the Benny Hill. Let's see how this heavy bike with the heavy rider on does. I say 21 amp controller, 48 volt. So it's got a bit of poke to it. Let's see how it gets up here. Don't know if you've noticed the battery sag, but that's quite horrendous and quite worrying really. Because when I seem to get into battery sag mode, it sort of takes out the power of the bike. I'm actually struggling to get up here, and I don't normally struggle to get up here on any of the e-bikes I've got, but I'm putting that down to three things: my weight, the bike weight, and battery sag. Because it's going to give less power output with heavy battery sag. But it's made it up here. What's the point? I've made it up here. But as you can see, down to one bar. Up to two. But yeah, struggled to get up there quite a bit. Like I said, that's a lot of that's down to the weight of the bike. So let's see what it's like around town. It's a nippy thing. Because it's heavy, it's quite stable. But yeah, you can feel it's got a bit of power to it. One of the things I don't like about this bike is the saddle. Being 6 foot, I can feel that ridge on the saddle. I'll show you a picture of it now, sticking into my coccyx, and it's not the most comfortable experience in the world. But it is what it is. Go check these tyres out. So we're going to be doing the tyre grip test down at the bottom here where I normally take it. And it's where I say if I'm going to come off anywhere, it's going to be down here because of the camber. But yeah, they're quite grippy, they're good tyres. Yeah, not bad at all. They're unbranded, they're not even Chow Yangs, but and they do look nice, they're black and tan. Yeah, they look quite nice tyres, these. Today, instead of the usual hill I do, it's a third hill climb. This one's just as bad. But again, battery sag lets this bike down when it comes to big hills because of the weight of the bike. Well, it's getting up here, but half of that's down to me. It's assisting me, which is what you want really. But in pass 3, I sort of expect more, but the battery's draining and it's giving me less. So I'm guessing if it was the same battery level as it was when I did the initial hill climb, it would piss it up there. But yeah, it's not a bad effort. Don't forget, I've got it in its top battery pass, so pass 3 is giving me everything. Apart from the tyres, it's really quiet, really is quiet. I'm quite impressed with that. I'm not expecting massive battery range on this. Again, because of the weight, my weight, the bike weight, all these factors are just not sort of lending themselves to battery efficiency. In a couple of weeks' time, I'm going to be reviewing the Ebike N1 Pro, and I expect at 18 kilos that bike to be a different thing altogether. But at this weight on this bike, still haven't recovered the hill climb, so I'm still down to sort of 1 bar, 2 bars now. I can't really see it recovering to 3 bars somehow. The brakes are a bit squeaky, as you can hear. Well, actually I've got noise reduction on, but they are quite squeaky. I've tried to get them as best as I can for the test. The bike's been sat around for a while in my garage as well, so I've not really had time to deal with that either. I got a shoulder cuff injury a few weeks back, so it sort of slowed me down on what I'm meant to be doing. Going around town's concerned, it's not bad at all. Like I said, this saddle isn't comfortable for me. It sort of restricts my sort of height to being sort of stuck on the back of the saddle, and that, where my coccyx keeps getting banged, is not ideal. I mean, if you're up to about between 5'4" and 5'8", 9", this would be a great little starter e-bike. And for the money, I'm going to put the price up on the screen right now of what this costs. It's an absolute bargain. Really is a bargain. For what you're getting an half decent e-bike for a third off the competition. I mean, the only thing that I can compare it to is probably the Ebike M20, and it's not that. It's not that at all. It's a different bike, it's a different weight. It's a bit subpar to that. Next time you moan about Chinesium, you want to compare it to steel. I mean, this thing could probably get hit by a tank and survive it, but you know, it's a different thing altogether when you're riding it. Do I like it? Yeah. You know, for the money, like I said, it's an absolute bargain. You know, a few upgrades, you could change these brakes out for 60, 70 quid to hydraulics. That'll make a big difference. You can put a throttle on it. There's a port for a throttle on here. But ultimately what lets it down is its weight. But when you're riding it, it's not too bad. Manoeuvring it around might be a different thing altogether. Downhill, it's quick. Well, most things are quick downhill, but you know, as you can see now, getting up to 30 kilometers an hour in a few seconds, it's no slow e-bike. Just got to get used to having no throttle, and I'm sort of used to that with cadence sensor e-bikes, not so much, but I'm used to it with torque sensor e-bikes that shift straight off the bat. But these things don't. It's sort of the thing I didn't want to like when it turned up, and as you all know, I've put it up now, I won't review any e-bike where I can't have total review, because it defeats the object. If they're telling you what to do, and we did have a couple of words about this, after the bike turned up there was a little bit of information creep, and I said, no, you can come and collect it. They said, no, you can say what you want about the bike. And I try and be fair with this. And to be honest, it's a cracking little bike. You know, for the money, you're getting more than you expect, let's put it that way. So let's see what this thing's like off-road. It's damp today, and these tyres get quickly clogged up with mud. They're quite a shallow, tread, so they get clogged up with mud quite quickly. I've just hit some mud just now coming up here, and it slid all over the place. So while they're sort of a multi-tyre, they're not something, well, it seems all right on this because this is a bit drier. I'm probably being a bit unfair, and I'm kind of used to Chaoyang tyres, but ultimately with them clogging up with mud quite quickly, they're not the best. They don't seem to want to chuck the mud out. I can see the mud stuck in there now. Well, no doubt on gravel and loose surfaces, they're fine. So yeah, on loose surfaces, it's not too bad, but on wet surface, like I've just felt the back end go out then, on sort of wet mud like this, doesn't seem to like it much. It's not the end of the world. I mean, ideally, I don't really ride these in the wet anyway, and this isn't the sort of bike I'd take off-road. But it does show that those Chaoyang tyres that I normally review on bikes are pretty good for what they are. I do like the colour of these. There's black and tan on these. Looks fab. But yeah, not bad at all. But just have to be aware that in loose mud or wet mud, this ain't going to get you any grip. As for when I've ridden around with the Chaoyang tyres in wet mud, they're fine. The brakes, again, they're not brilliant. But again, for the money, you can swap them out quite cheaply. One of my biggest bugbears with this bike is the suspension. Yeah, and while there's no adjustment on the front fork, you're sort of constantly digging in when you brake, which is obviously having some sort of effect on the battery range. The rear feels fine, even at my weight, but again, there's no adjustment there really either. But yeah, I haven't, the other thing is the range on this thing. So what you can see on there is 18 kilometers, and I'm down to roughly just probably a bar and a half left out of the battery. And that's squeaking to 1 bar as well. So I'm now at lower power than I would be on a fully charged battery. The other thing, this cadence sensor is really jerky. It's something you can live with because you'll get used to it, but it is really jerky. It sort of cuts in on its own now and again without the slightest move of the pedals, and it definitely cuts in. Which in again itself, it's not brilliant. It's got a few fleas. Most of these bikes do have a few fleas, but this one tends to have fleas that get on your nerves rather than anything else. I like the grips. I'm kind of used to these style grips. We all know my view on these tombstone shifters. I'm not a big fan of them. I do prefer the trigger shifters, but again, you can always swap them out. But most people, if it's their first e-bike, sort of get used to them from the off. I sort of got used to them the other way around. But the height thing, I mean, me being 6 foot, and I'm really struggling with this. I struggle with the M20, but not as much as this, because this is just irritating, the fact that it's sort of digging into my coccyx at the back. It's just not the best, and it's not comfortable. I sort of could never get used to it. Again, you could probably get a different saddle or have a saddle made, but then you're getting into the territory of a more expensive e-bike. It's just done that jerk thing with the cadence sensor again. So yeah, I mean, this is an horrible hill. Might have to get into a different gear for this. You can probably see how steep this is as I'm going up it. It's about as steep as what the hill climb is. Well, it's probably steeper, but it's shorter. But I am putting a lot of effort in now to get up this hill. And I'm drained down to 1 bar, which means it's not giving me a lot of power. 20 kilometers. So I'm probably going to get 23 kilometers out of it at the end of this review, which is far less than I normally get on an e-bike. But I have had it on its highest pass level throughout the review. Again, it's just done that jerk thing with a cadence sensor. I mean, getting back to this bike as a whole, it's got a whole lot of cool factor. I love these mud guards, and they're solid. I bought some similar off of AliExpress, and they feel cheap and nasty. These feel like, you know, they could take a car crash and still be on the bike. They're solid. The look of the bike itself is just really, really good. It's just let down by some silly things. And that's what I always say, these Chinese e-bike makers, they just always get something just a little bit wrong. Angway especially, they do, not to this extent. This has a lot of things that, you know, you sort of like think, oh, that's brilliant, that's good, and but it's at expense to something else. It's all down to that budgetary thing again. This would make a good first e-bike. If you just want to get into e-biking on a budget, this is brilliant. This is also ideal for sort of like younger riders. You know, if you're thinking of getting your son or daughter an e-bike, this is sort of ideal as a starter bike, because there's no throttle, it's set up legal, so they're not going to have problems with confiscation anxiety. You're not going to have any problems with confiscation anxiety. It only goes up to 15 mile an hour if you don't mess about with the unlock. There's loads of CE stickers over this bike saying it's EU legal and it's CE compliant. And there's a lot to be said about that. And you can keep up with your mates. You're a 14, 15-year-old lad, you can keep up with your mates on this easily, whatever they're riding. You know, unless they're riding Saurons. The battery life, like I said, is not brilliant. But I think if you had it down in pass 2 and you were tootling along for the day, you get probably 25-30 miles out of this, depending on your weight, which is probably standard for 15 ampere battery. Again, all depending on your weight. Battery ranges, I keep telling everybody, is all dependent on your weight, the bike's weight, the weather, the wind, the terrain. It's a fingerprint. Everybody has their sort of e-bike range fingerprint. Mine's tragically low because of my weight. But if I was sort of like 12, 13 stone, I could be looking at probably 25% more range on the batteries that I use on my bikes. But as far as e-bikes could go, this is brilliant. As far as e-bikes go, this isn't bad for the money. Well, as far as e-bikes go, this is good for the money. This really is good for the money. Like I said, if your kid's sort of like nagging you to get an e-bike, I'd recommend this. As first e-bike, I'd recommend this. Caused me no problem staying apart from a bit of slippy sliding on the mud. But again, like I said, these tyres aren't probably best for grip on muddy terrains. They look like they are, but they're a compromise between sort of off-road tyres and road tyres. They're not the best compromise. They're a good compound. Again, I'll moan about it again, but these brakes are sort of like tragic. They're not the best at all. But these aren't the only Chinese e-bike company throwing e-bikes out with mechanical brakes on them, which they shouldn't be doing. These bikes should be sent out with hydraulics as standard, and more so at the weight of this bike. Anyway, let's go on with the breakdown. So it's been a mad couple of months for me because I've gone for a shoulder injury. I've damaged my rotator cuff, so I haven't been able to get out riding for a few weeks. And only kind of felt like getting back into it because spring's here. Yay! E-bike season. So, yeah, the Evercross EK30. What did I think of it? Well, I laid a lot of it down in the review. The brakes are dog shit. They really are. And none of these e-bikes deserve at this weight to have mechanical brakes. They're not the best. And there's going to have to come a time where they're forced into putting decent hydraulic brakes on any bike that's over 30 kilos. It looks great. It really does look good. It's a really good looking e-bike, and when I first got it, I didn't want to like it. I said that in the review, I didn't want to like it, but once I got it out of the box and it was easy to put together, all I had to do was put the handlebars on, not even have to put the front wheel on. Since then, it's been a joy. There's a lot of pros to it. Those mud guards look fantastic and they're solid. You know, the bike is an actual tank. And if I had a teenager who was 14, 15 years old who was sort of saying, get me an e-bike, all my mates got e-bikes, this is the bike I'd get them. Restricted 15.5 mile an hour and there's no throttle. And within that, it's UK legal. There's a grey area about the motor size, but this is a video I'm going to be doing next about how stupid e-bike law is in the UK or the whole of Europe. And now the Americans are getting in on the act that you can have, in California, you can have a bike that is sort of what they call class 3, but you can't have a throttle on it. You can have pedals on it. The whole thing's ridiculous, and we've got to stop being suckers for this because we're being led down a bad path. And I keep pointing out that e-bike companies are trying to catch up with legislation, but legislation it's not stagnant, but you just wonder what the next silly law is. And one of the silly laws, as far as I'm concerned, is the fact that you've got to have a 250 watt motor, and the motor size has nothing to do with the relevance of the controller. The controller controls the output. So you can have a controller that controls it to 250 watts. But if you can unlock the bike to do another speed, anyway, I'll get into this. I'll get into this in the next video. Back to this bike. Yeah, it's a fabulous little bike. It's heavy though. One of the problems with it is its weight, and its weight really doesn't do the fact that it has crap brakes on it any favours whatsoever. Like I said, looks wise, it's a fabulous looking bike, and as a first e-bike, you know, especially at that price point, I say this price point, they've sold out at that price point that I pointed out on the screen. My Mod Projects discount code doesn't seem to work anywhere, and when I look at it online in other places, it's £1,000. I won't pay £1,000 for this bike, but I would pay £820 or whatever it was the first time I saw it, and then you get the discount code on top, which brings it down to under 800 quid. But like I said, the discount code don't work, and I'll still put this review up. Like I said, this channel's not about making any money. It's about sort of getting you a discount and getting you on your ass onto an e-bike. So it's got a decent headlight, and it's got indicators in the front headlights, and to be fair, they should be on the rear, but the more I ride e-bikes, the more I come to understanding that they're totally ignored anyway. It doesn't matter what you sort of do to indicate, or even put your hand out to turn right or left, people will just go out their way to overtake you just to piss you off. So indicators are no longer on my list as a need for an e-bike. It can be unlocked. So if you go into the P settings and go into the speed settings, you have to stay in kilometers an hour, and you put the max speed up to 67. Go up one, go down one, it doesn't work. 67 kilometers an hour, and it unlocks it. And I was getting 23 mile an hour out of it. So big thanks to Be Rich for working that one out, because I couldn't work it out. And when I asked Evercross what the unlock code was, they said it couldn't be unlocked. So yeah, it can be unlocked. The tyres, I think I've been a bit cruel about the tyres in the review. They do have a funny tread pattern on them, and they do tend to get clogged up. They're fine on the road, and they're quite quiet. The motor's quiet too. I've got to give it that. I'm not sure what this basket's for. I worked it out is 3 packets of Jaffa Cakes and 2 energy drinks can go in there, and they're going to rattle as you go along. But I'd have rather have had a spot where you could put a second battery, and that's one of another downsides of this bike, is there's nowhere to put a second battery in, because the battery range on it's quite tragic. Say tragic. It's tragic at my weight and the bike weight. So if you've got somebody in your family, like your son, daughter, whatever, who's after an e-bike, 13 stone, they're going to get a far better range out of it than I did. My range was 20, I think it was about 26 kilometers at the end, and it was down to 1 bar, and I had to recharge it to go out and do something else with it. So yeah, if you're riding around with your mates, just want a little cruiser, this bike's fabulous. Back to the saddle. My height at 6 foot, I was sat on that groove at the back, and it was banging on my coccyx. And I don't know, if you go back and watch the video, you'll see my knees coming up quite high, and I'm only 6 foot. Well, I say I'm only 6 foot. This bike, height range wise, is going to be about 5'3" to about tops out at 5'9". And it goes back to that thing where you're having to fit yourself to the e-bike, not fitting the e-bike to you. And it's one of the things that I'm quite hot on, that you have to be able to sort of have some adjustment. And with these street style bikes, there's no adjustment. You can't do anything. You can put pads on the saddle, whatever you want to do, but ultimately you're having to adjust you to the bike, not the bike to you. And this is where these things like my Ebike Pro 2.0 comes. You can make it fit you, and there's no issue with it. It fits loads of sizes, people, shapes, whatever. But this thing, it's the same as the M20. The Ebike M20, better bike, but it's the same problem, that you're sort of trying to fit yourself to the bike, and you consequently, at my height, at 6 foot, you're sort of scrunched up into the saddle. Or in this case, I was pushed backwards, and like I said, I was on that little V-shaped cusp, and it was driving me nuts. So there's that. What else? Well, you know, unlocked, it's a lot of fun, and even locked, it's a lot of fun. And the fact that you can get this bike going within about 3/4 of a turn of that cadence sensor and it kicks in is brilliant. But there comes a caveat to that, because some of the time that I was using it, it was doing what it wanted. It was just cutting in whenever it wanted to, which was really annoying. And I had no pressure on the pedals when I was doing this. Consequently, it sort of felt jerky sometimes, and jerky when you didn't want it to jerk, because you're sort of like riding round, you know, in traffic and whatever. It only takes it to jerk forward when you're behind something that's braking and you're into the back of something. So there was that. The handlebars were great. That colour screen was fabulous. I really did like that colour screen. There's quite a bit of multifunctionality in it, and I liked it. It just looked pretty. I mean, it's an odd thing to say about a jet black bike that sort of like tries its best to look cool and menacing, but here's the thing. Look at the photos. It does look cool. It's a really cool looking e-bike. And if I had a teenage son or a teenage daughter at around about 14, 15 years old, this would be perfect. Street legal. So yeah, you won't be worrying about any sort of confiscation anxiety anytime soon. The thing's built like a tank. It really is. It's heavy, it's sturdy. If I come off it, I'd be quite happy to, I believe that I'd be sort of like, I'd be the most thing damaged. The bike would probably just have a few scratches in it. That paint's thick as well, which makes a change. That paint, it's a really deep black and it's pretty thick, so you're not going to go around scratching it anytime soon. Final thoughts? Well, I've got to give it a score out of 10, haven't I? And I'm going to give it 8.7. And the reason for this is that I've calced it up, and the dog shit brakes for a start off, the weight of the bike and the poor range stops it from getting a higher score, because I would have given it a higher score. I don't mind not having a throttle on an e-bike. I've got used to it now. But ultimately, if you're going to have no throttle on an e-bike, you really want to have a torque sensor and not a cadence sensor. Yeah, I'm going to stick with that. It's a good score for the bike, and the value for money is really one of the reasons that it didn't get a lower score. Because I would have lowered it out slightly for the tyres, because they're unbranded, and that seat position's just dire. It really is for anybody over 5'9". I say you see my knees coming up in the video, and it's basically because, well, I was kind of stuck in a position which I didn't really want to be in. It's not very comfortable. So that's it. I've got another review coming up in a couple of weeks, which will be the Map 4 Engwe N1 Pro, which I've been looking forward to, so I keep mentioning it. Carbon fibre, lots of toys on it. And I'm going to be doing an extra long video about that, and probably taking it down to London for the day, so we're going to get some nice shots around London. Just, it's a commuter bike, so there's nowhere in England that, you know, commuter bikes are needed more. It's a fabulous looking thing. The reality is it like what it looks on paper? We'll find out sometime soon. I've also got another video coming about UK e-bike law and why most of it's a joke, and why we've got to stop falling for this crap and get somebody on board to help the e-bike community, because I have to be honest with you, a lot of the laws that we've got running around e-bikes at the moment are utter bullshit, and we can't go on like this. If the governments want us to get onto e-bikes, they've got to make laws to suit. And if they all keep talking green, spending billions on mechanical trees to capture carbon, which is an absolute joke, because nobody even knows if that. Here's the thing. It's out there now. We can actually reduce the carbon coming out of cars and everything else that the carbon produces by riding e-bikes, because you drive your cars less. I'm down to driving around about, it's got to be 70% less in the winter, 80% less in the summer using my car, because I go out and see clients on my e-bike. Why not? It's a good talking point as well. So yeah, that's it. Just hold on to the end. There's a little bit coming at the end. And have a nice weekend, everyone. See ya.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.